In this video, we're talking about gender identity and sexuality. When I was in school, nobody spoke to me about these issues, but these issues are pivotal for students, particularly as they become adolescents and start questioning or sometimes struggling with their sexuality or gender identity. We absolutely want to be affirming of all students and make sure our classrooms and schools are safe spaces for all students, regardless of gender and sexuality. In this video, we're talking about gender and sexual diversity in your classroom. How do we ensure all students feel validated? How do we avoid making mistakes in language, pronouns, and identifying students? How do we create safe and thriving spaces for our students and create student leaders who can help pave the way for their peers to become more inclusive and celebrate diversity? Welcome to Gender Identity and Sexual Fluidity. Most of us grew up in a world where we thought there were two genders, male and female. Even then, gender was policed. Boys were called sissies if they didn't exhibit tough guy masculinity. Girls were called names like butch or being made fun of for being tomboys. We can see how this policing of gender has been and is related to homophobia and heterosexism. Homophobia is fear, and heterosexism, much more pervasive, is the assumption that people are straight, and our social structures are designed for people or families that are straight. Today, we're learning much more about gender diversity. We have terms like transgendered and trans, someone whose biology or anatomy does not match their gender identity. They may use pronouns like he or she, but these pronouns do not match their assigned sex at birth. We have non-binary or genderqueer, someone who may not be trans, but does not fit with one particular gender. They may use pronouns like Z or they. We have people who are LGBTQ2I, different sexualities along the spectrum of sexuality. Note, our heterosexist world impacts people from all of these identities and communities. The term cisgendered means somebody whose biology or anatomy does match their gender identity. It's important to note that all of us have a sexual and gender identity. Here are some tips for teachers. Find out what your students need and who they are. Use their pronoun or name of choice. Make sure that their name on the attendance doesn't out them. Make sure, if it's not their preferred name, it's never read aloud, even by a substitute teacher. Some students need help with their bodies, making them fit their preferred gender, and some phys ed teachers do great work with students to help them in this area. Make sure you avoid girls versus boys activities. There's research that this is harmful for those who identify as both or neither gender, but also that cisgendered female students feel othered or less than by these activities. Avoid making assumptions about the gender identity or sexuality of your students. Give examples of trans or non-binary people in curricular materials like stories, literatures, and music so students have healthy models. And as much as possible, name any harassment or bullying around gender early. Use it as a teachable moment to discuss stereotypes and how they're formed. Here's an activity you can try. Divide your board into 3. Put the word or symbol for male, female, and trans or non-binary in the columns. Ask students to list derogatory words applied to each group. This can lead to some inappropriate language. I usually tell students to say it here and then make sure they never say it anywhere else. And then you can debrief the lists you've created with your students. Notice, many of the names males get called have to do with homophobia or calling boys girls. Notice that many of the names girls get called have to do with sexuality, the body, or a lack of intelligence. And notice that people who are trans or non-binary get called all of these names, as well as some that are directed particularly to them, like freak. You have to trust your class to be able to do this, but in my experience, it's a powerful exercise that gets at the root of bullying and makes our culture's attitudes towards gender obvious and clear.